Our family, my name is Dennis Saul Winkler, minister of the Temple New African Thought, also known as the psychosocial spiritual entrepreneur, and you are rocking with the Conscious Black Business Network Radio. Our family have a powerful show coming up today. We have a mama, a nana, a warrior queen in the studio, along with brother Jabari Nettur. Peace, family. Brother Jabari, how's everything going?
Everything's good, brother. Glad to be here.
Everything is going good. Everything is going fine. So, Brother Jabbar, we have, I won't even mention the name. I know everybody, I'm just going to switch the camera over to the great queen to talk so that you guys can talk about exactly what's going on, what's coming up with the Conscious Black Business Network and Reality Speaks, a staple in the community.
Basically, we've joined forces with the Conscious Black Business Network. We've been doing a few events together. Have here with us a sister who I love. I first met this sister when I was working at Everyone's Place, and I was listening to different tapes by different people, and then I finally got to listening to this sister, Dr. Patricia Newton. And I was like, man, this sister is deep. So I would take it back to our study group and check it out. So we actually started studying some of the tapes and all. And then one day a sister came into Everyone's Place and she was, asking questions like, oh, is Brother Nati here? And, just asked a few questions or whatever. And she said, well, leave my information. And then she took a pen, gave a piece of paper, and she said, and I saw Dr. Newton. I was like, wait a minute. Dr. Patricia Newton? And she was like, she said, yeah, that's me. I'm Dr. Patricia Newton. I said, what? And I just kind of went crazy, and I was like, man, because it was like I was meeting one of my superheroes. Because I had been listening to her tapes and all. So
you met your superhero, right?
I met one of my superheroes, and from there we exchanged information, and we started to do events and started doing events together, and it was a beautiful thing. So I'm just happy and humbled to be here talking to her right now on this program.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
No problem.
All right, so Brother Jabari, so I know you have an event coming up pretty soon. Could you tell the family a little bit about that event? What's going on? What's happening? The whereabouts? The who, what, when, where's, and why's.
So that event is February the 20th. Saturday, February the 20th. It's from 7 to 10 p.m. Doors will open at 6 in Baltimore, Maryland, at 430 East Belvedere. And that church is Pleasant Hope Baptist Church by Pastor Heber Brown down there. Very positive brother there. We've been doing several events there. We've done Ashra Kwesi, we've done Umar Johnson, Claude Anderson, Anthony Browder, a host of other folks that we've been doing there. So we've been having a pretty good response there at that church, at Pleasant Hope Baptist Church. But we'll be talking about racism and the legacy of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the news right now about race. It's a racist country, racist society. So we know it's always stuff going on. So we'll talk about some of those things that's going on. We'll actually mention some today. We'll be talking about the great legacy of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who's an inspiration to us all. It's going to be on and popping. And Dr. Newton always delivers a great message. He always has something dynamic to say.
You've been telling me, brother, you say, look, she's going to drop it on the people. She's going to drop it so heavy. I mean, and just not something is life changing. Something is transforming. Something that can help our people in the times that we are in.
Right.
One thing I like to say before we bring out Dr. Newton is I've been doing some research in the mental health field and so on and so forth. And I was like doing this research on mirror neurons and all these different things. I'm like, now people are not talking about this. I said, hold up. I'm thinking, I did a presentation 1 week up at, because I'm in schooling for pastoral counseling program and all this other thing. But I did a presentation a week before PLM brought her in to speak. I'm like, oh my gosh, she came and she brought the information. And look, she dropped the whole thing about the mirror neurons and how, how this thing keeps us in this certain mood and how it affects us and so on and so forth. And I was like, wow, Dr. Newton is really bringing it, right? But, so that's an awesome thing. So nonetheless, anything else I want you to bring out? You've been working with her for so long. I want you to bring on, just tell the people who she is. Well, unless she wants to talk for herself,
Well, we'll let Dr. Patricia Newton tell the people who she is. She actually has several different African names and African titles that I mean, that's hard to keep up with. But she does a lot of trips over to Africa, and she is a. We'll let you say it.
Okay. Hello to your listening audience. And once again, I want to thank Brother Jabari and Reality Speaks and the Conscious Black Business Network for bringing me um, back to talk about someone who actually encouraged me to come into psychiatry, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Um, I am a psychiatrist, a neuropsychiatrist, and was on my way to being a surgeon. And did my senior year of medical school at Washington University in St. Louis. I came to D.C. to do an elective at the National Institutes of Health. Electives run about three months at a time, and I was trying to get out of St. Louis. Okay,
Wow.
so I had gone to Boston and came down from Boston to D.C. and had read the Crest theory of color confrontation, which Dr. Welsing had written in 1970. This was 1974 that I met Dr. Welsing, and I had called a senior psychiatrist who was also powerful that many people may not know who live outside of Washington, and that's Dr. Alice Galade, who was a mentor of Dr. Welsing, and asked her, "Do you know this lady that wrote this color confrontation? This thing is the bomb." And at that time, I was the president of the Black Medical Students Association in St. Louis. And so she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'd like to, while I'm in D.C. for these 6 to 8 weeks, get over and see her." And so she gave me a number. I called, and she said, "Oh, yeah, well, I'll be available at such and such a time." So I came over there and sit down and talk to her. And it's like I had already known her. I mean, it was like not meeting someone that was a stranger. It was really like meeting,
Wow.
an older friend. And so we sit down, and she talked to me for almost 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
The first time, I'm a med student, I'm in total awe. And as I was getting ready to leave, she said, "Well, I know we're going to see you in psychiatry when you finish medical school." And I turned around and said, "Oh, no, Dr. Welsing, I'm going to be a surgeon." I said, "I'm already going to accept a surgical internship. I'm not going to be a shrink." And she said, "Well, oh, no, my dear." She said, "You're a thinker, not a cutter."
Wow.
And I walked out the door and said,
Thinking, not a cut.
And the rest, of course, is history. I actually became a psychiatrist, and I guess I became a thinker and not a cutter due to her wisdom. And we had maintained a relationship, over those years through the Melanin conferences, because the Kim Ware Science Consortium used to produce the annual Melanin conferences across the country.
Right.
And Dr. Welsing was the keynote, and I was a member of the Kim Ware Science Consortium, along with Dr. Richard King, peace be upon him, who wrote the African Origins of Biological Psychiatry, who was also a psychiatrist and recently made his transition, and Dr. Wade Nobles and Professor Hunter Adams, Professor James Smalls, Drs. Leonard and Rosalind Jeffries, Professor Anthony Broder, Rickety Amin Jones. These were the people that were doing those conferences. And so Dr. Welsing was a regular, with us. And so that was before I had done all of my name changing that you're talking about, because I was going back and forth to Kemet with both Dr. Ben and Dr. Asa Hilliard Baba, peace be upon both of them.
Wow.
And of course, Dr. Clark was a part of the Melanin conferences. All these legends.
Right.
I feel so blessed that all of these legends were part of my life. So I had the name Sekhmet.
Right.
And a lot of times when you'll hear people who know me from before, they'll call me Sekhmet. And the ones who knew me from high school and college will call me Fig Newton.
Right.
and then I started going to Africa with Dr. Charles Finch to West Africa, to Senegal, and meeting with traditional healers, Mam Fatou Sek in Senegal, and ended up being called, by a Senegalese named Aminata. And of course, Mama Sek predicted that I would do some other things. And those
Mhm.
other things ultimately became the fact that I became both a queen mother in Ghana, in the Ashanti region, and then in 96, and then in 1997, I actually became a female chief.
Right.
And one of the first female chiefs in Ghana with the name Nana Akosua Achai. And everybody pronounces it because they want to call it Akaya because it's spelled Akyaa. And in Chui, Akyaa is pronounced Achai. And so now I am still Segmed. I'm still Aminata to whomever, and I'm definitely Nana Akosua Achai because I have a village in Ghana of which I sit on two what we call blackened stools, which means stools of heritage, not just honor stools, but
Right.
but traditional stools, both as a sitting queen mother and as a chief, which is normally carried by men.
Wow. I mean, so really, we sitting here with, I guess we would say, OG, with an OG who's traveled with. I mean, and that's pretty much what you are. I mean, you've traveled with all of the great scholars, and I like to thank you just sitting here with you. That here in Baltimore, Tubman City, that you were the one that was bringing most of the lecturers here.
Okay.
And actually, I actually picked the baton up from her because I came at the back end of the things she was doing. She was bringing all of the scholars she talked about, and Dr. Khaled Abdul Muhammad and all of those folks who she had a very close relationship with. I came in the back end,
right?
And, and starting, it's kind of the baton being passed. She still does things all the time,
but every once in a while,
yeah. But so that's definitely the history there. So what do you think about, as a person who's been with many of the OGs of this history, Black nationalist movement? What do you think about the New Age scholars that we have today? I mean, what do you feel? I mean, rolling.
How
with...
you gonna take my question, bro?
Oh,
how you gonna take? How you gonna take? No. How you gonna take my question? Now I gotta go back to the drawing board. Go ahead. Good question.
I hope you wrote a lot of stuff down.
But actually, and I wanted to say, if I can, I was gonna preface it with this: since you are Sekhmet. You understand?
Yeah.
Let's set the record straight.
Wearing her already.
I say.
Yeah. So how do I feel about the New Age scholars? Repeat the question. Put it into context so I don't go too far out of line.
All right, so we see that there's the elder scholars, such as yourself and those who come before you, and so on and so forth. And personally, I'm not going to say my opinion. I want to say it, but one of the things that I think about a lot is, are we prepared to take the baton? And a lot of times I see this new YouTube age thing going on. And a lot of people are coming up and just popping up, and they're becoming quote unquote self-proclaimed scholars. So where do you see? Do you think that we are ready to carry this thing on? Do you see? I don't know. Do you see the things that's going on in the community? What are your thoughts on it overall?
Well, you're asking a psychiatrist, so we're going to do several kind of ways of answering that question. First of all, I think it is a good thing that we have a new age of scholars that are interested in studying and learning about our history.
Yes, ma'am.
But not so much just for self-promotion, but for the liberation of first the African mind and then the African behind. And so one of the things that I think is a testimony to our longevity, I'm talking about the older scholars, is the fact that there was a level of humility that was important and is critically important in terms of not only giving credit to those who went before, but also in terms of your sustainability. Because if the ego is so carried away that you get blinders, then people don't listen. They listen for a minute and then they stop. One of the other elders, local Baltimore elders, who's now gone from our midst, was Dr. John Chazelle, who was a part of the Chemware Science Consortium. And he used to say that ego was defined as easing God out. And so what I think is clear is that with the technology and the level of study, that the new scholars are prepared. What I don't see is the humility and the understanding of what is required to negotiate through a very difficult, extremely challenging, and fatalistic society as it comes to our people. I remember when I was studying in Senegal with Mam Fatasek in depth with Dr. Finch, Charles Finch, who many of you know was a warrior scholar himself. And we were going through an initiation process, and someone said, "Oh, I want to become a priest or a priestess. I want to become, and I need to know what to do." And I remember turning around and saying to the young person, "You are selected. You don't choose." And so part of the issue is that what we have to understand, here we were in a remote fishing village outside of Dakar with no running water and no electricity of any sort, outdoor toilets and all of these things, studying from a woman who you would call in America illiterate. But had wisdom beyond anything that our book knowledge would give us. And I remember the phrase that I am a student as long as my teacher lives. And so part of what is important for us is to understand that we all stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, and to give credit to those people who have laid the foundation for us to be in a position to even negotiate about tooting our own horns.
I mean, and I guess we asked the question because, you know, in the age of YouTube, there's so many bright upcoming scholars.
Excellent ones, yes.
But they have a different, like, they're very, like, you know, me walking in the line of divine, you know, with yourself and Dr. Benz and all, you know, the way I was taught, don't get me wrong, they would say what they need to say at different times. But the new scholars of the day are very, you know, and I guess they saying that this is what you need to reach the people, but they're very vulgar. F this B, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
well,
you know.
Yeah, but there's no need to use profanity. I mean, I understand that they want to make a point. I understand that it is part of the lingo of the times. But if you are being about the business of doing business for the liberation of our people, what is critically important is that you not only talk the talk, but you walk the walk.
Right.
And when you as a scholar or as an elder or as someone who is purporting to be such, or people who have declared you as such, when you walk into a room, that room is supposed to light up.
Right.
It's not supposed to be dark. Right. You know, there's an old saying that goes, so everybody lights up a room. Some people when they enter, others when they leave. And so, you know, part of the issue is there is a style that is just different, I guess, because the times are different. Right. But one of the things you want to do is to always have yourself in a position of being respected, of being walking the walk while you talk the talk, and never being able to have to go back and apologize for anything. Now, I'm not saying that folk are apologizing for some of this stuff, but I'm saying that, you know, as you get older and you have children coming along and these kind of things, you want to set a proper example so that they can understand you are descendants of kings and queens.
Right. So what I like to say though, brother Jabari, just to add on to that I believe, I know that, you know, there's a difference. Like, I don't personally myself see that all the quote unquote scholars are that way.
No, they're not.
Now, I'm saying those who are on YouTube getting the hits, you know, because I proclaim to be, you know, I was appointed by an elder, but what I'm saying, and also brothers like, you know, sisters like Sister Yai, your brother Imhotep, you know, yourself, there are people who are out here who are not on YouTube acting like those type of things.
Right.
You know, so.
But let me just say this. I think that when you use profanity, there's a place for it to be for emphasis, not just every other word coming out of your mouth, because what that says is that your linguistic skills and vocabulary are limited.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
It's like it's like a new gangster consciousness, you know what I'm saying, that exists in the community today. Now, like I said, I understand when you speak into different crowds of people, you know what I'm saying, you may have to, okay, I'm speaking to this crowd. I got to speak this way. I'm speaking to some gang
Right,
members
because
or
if your
whatever.
children have eyes in the back of their head, you
Yeah.
got to go to the back
Yeah.
of their head.
But
You
when
can't
you
talk
have
to them
like
from
a
the front.
mixed crowd of people,
Right.
then there's just a certain. I mean, so like I said, I appreciate what some of the brothers and sisters are doing, but I think that some of it is way out of hand.
Well, I was at UAM, United African Movement in New York last year. I'll be back again this year. I always am invited for Black Women's History Month, and I was staying at the home of some people, and I said, "Are you coming to the lecture tonight?" And the person said, "No, I don't think so." I said, "Why not?" "Well, I can't get with all of that lingo and stuff that goes on."
Right.
And so I said to the lady, "I want you to come.
Right.
But I want you to know that not everybody that is a conscious African,
Right.
that is purporting the liberation of our people, are foul mouthed, or not without caring, and are bashing the people whose shoulders they stand on." Right. So I want you to come. And when she did come, she said, "Oh my God, this was just a wonderful experience. I never thought I would have that experience." And this is not to negate anything that anyone is saying. It is to just say that there's a time and a place for all things.
I agree.
Yes, ma'am.
And we just have to learn the code for when to do what, when, and where.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I agree. When it comes to one, like I said, we've been bringing you for years to Tubman. Well, you here in Tubman City, but one of our classics that we have is early sexual trauma, which is a classic in the research that you did on that DVD. If you could just, just a little, give us an overview of that early sexual trauma in the Black community.
Well, it's interesting because we had a conference here in 2013 over at the Hilton in Baltimore called Early Sexual Trauma in the African American Community, and we brought scholars from all over the country. It's unfortunate that many Baltimoreans did not attend, and we also brought in the brother that did the film Wolf, Brother Yaki, who did this film on sexual abuse in the Black church. And it was an awesome, awesome experience. And so what I said was that in the African American community in Baltimore, as well as other cities, and that's been replicated by other data, that we have an issue that is going unaddressed, and that's the trauma that our children experience physically as well as sexually. Wow. And that with my own research that was going on for many, many years, almost 2 decades, in this town, we had almost 8 out of every 10 African American women and almost 7 out of every 10 African American men in Baltimore City had been molested as children. And that means that it's a public health problem. Right. That means that it is normative if you were born in Baltimore to have been molested.
Wow.
How sick is that? But it's not just Baltimore, so I don't want to single out Baltimore. Right. I was talking to one of the doctors out in LA who works at a HIV clinic, and he was telling me that 80% of everybody that comes to his clinic had talked about in the Los Angeles Watts area that they had been sexually molested. So this goes back historically to the experience that our ancestors had on the boat, in the dungeons, on the boat, and then once they arrived at the plantations. Right. So this has been ingrained into the culture of our people. And when we start looking at the data about, nowadays you're seeing that, some people are saying that, pedophilia is a normative part of it, life existence and all of that. It is not normative. Wow. It is historically true that it occurred, but it is not normative. Wow. And it does create dysfunction and disunity and detriment to a developing young neurological system. Right. We can't ignore that. Right. We may want to ignore that for whatever all of our sexual gratification needs are, whatever we perceive them to be. But the reality of it is that you don't traumatize children in that way and not expect some damage. Right. You superimpose that upon the historical trauma that we as an African people have had for centuries, and then you add this new insult to injury, you've got 1 and 1 equaling 10, not 1 plus 1 equaling 2.
I think in that lecture you mentioned that Maryland was a sex breeding state.
Virginia was.
Okay.
Virginia was
Okay.
Once the transatlantic slave trade stopped on the high seas, then we had breeding states.
Okay.
So and Virginia was close enough to Maryland.
Right. Absolutely. Right. That's where my family's from.
No, all right now.
You know, they just come on up. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So could you touch on? Is there, from your experience, any correlation between that type of trauma and homosexuality?
Well, I can't say in general. What I can say is about the patients that I treat.
Yes, ma'am.
That that I know. In my early research for the work we've been doing in trauma for years, one of the things that rings clear is that there was almost a 99% reality of those patients who were expressing same-sex relationships as a lifestyle choice.
Yes, ma'am.
Or either bisexual relationships as a lifestyle choice within the African American community had been molested. Now, as children. Now, that doesn't mean that people who have heterosexual life experiences as a lifestyle choice have not been molested either.
Yes, ma'am.
But it does ring out something that requires a good deal of observation and further study, that is a common variable. And if it is that common, does that change the reality for what people have in terms of what they select to be their sexual preferences? The theory has never been dealt with in terms of whether or not it's biological or whether or not it's sociological. In the old days, when I was going to medical school, some people who were classified as a hermaphrodite, who had two sexual organs. That represented less than 5% of the population.
Right.
What you like sexually is learned.
Wow.
What turns you on, whatever that is, it is learned.
Right.
And so you have to go back and look at what people are exposed to that makes them have a lifestyle preference. I'm not here to gay bash or anything of that nature. I'm just talking about with the patient population, and I have looked at over, more than 5,000 to 10,000 people over time, and at least 5,000 in the book, post-traumatic slavery disorder, that we hope will finally resurface this year, and resurface in 4 languages. But among those patients that I treated,
yes, ma'am,
I did not have a single patient that had a gay or bi lifestyle that had not been molested as a child. Wow. Now that may not be the case in other situations. I can only speak from what I know.
Wow. So let me just stick there for just a second. Did you say that at least 99% and not a single patient that you treated that was in that lifestyle had not been molested?
That's exactly what I said.
Wow.
That's my data. I mean, I can't address anybody else's stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
And they may not admit it up front, but there's an issue of trust that comes up. And then once the patient is in treatment and they realize that they're safe and all these kinds of things, then you go back and you revisit these kinds of questions. And what you find is that it's too high to be a normal Gaussian distribution statistically.
Wow. That is definitely too high.
That's a deep presentation, early sexual trauma in the Black community. And people definitely want to get a copy of that. She deals with a lot of this stuff, and it will have you like shaking your head.
So, Brother Jabari, how can they get a copy of that?
They can go to realityspeaksbookstore.com and get a copy of that actual lecture. And I think, do you have it available on?
No, I just let you take care of it.
Right. Dr. Newton, you are on the new Hidden Colors that's coming out soon.
Yes, I am.
What? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say.
Oh, okay. What exactly? How was your experience with the new Hidden Colors?
It was a good experience.
That's 4, right? Hidden Colors 4.
This is Hidden Colors 4,
Okay.
and um, we we were all flown out to L.A.
Okay.
and Brother Tariq did his interview and taping. We don't know what portion of the interview will be actually in the in the film. But we did have an interesting discussion around melanin issues, around issues of so-called white supremacy, and a number of other issues. It was a very good experience. I think it's going to be worth viewing, especially for people who are just coming into their consciousness out of their semi-comatose state.
Right. Good. Well, it's definitely good to have you there. Like I said, as an OG, I think Brother Tariq has reached out to a lot of the OGs of the movement, and bringing them into Hidden Colors. So I mean, it's definitely gonna be good to have you there. Right. And and I guess in Baltimore we did last year. We did Hidden Colors 3 at the movie theater, and I'm pretty sure we'll probably do the same thing this year.
Hidden Colors 4.
Yeah, Hidden Colors 4.
I think it's coming out in the spring.
In the spring. Okay. Yeah. So
can't wait. I did see Dr. Newton on the actual trailer, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." The trailer is very interesting. I think is an awesome lineup. I just saw the lineup. I was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Who's not on there?" I was like, "Who's not on there?" I was like, "That's going to be some serious stuff when you go." And I think Tariq, he took it back to, from what I saw in the trailer, to some heavy hitters, to some of the foundational people out here doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Newton, I wanted to ask you. I had a joke. Actually, I was putting on Facebook, and the Super Bowl that just passed, and I kept saying that Cam Newton was like grandson of Huey P. Newton. So I actually text you one day, and I said, Dr. Newton, is Cam Newton?
I would like to have the young man related to me, but he's not that I'm aware of, because we all came from the same plantation, probably with the Newton name. So
exactly. But you are the cousin of.
I'm not going to be discussing that on
okay.
on media.
Right. Got you. So I did send you a text with that. But moving forward, the topic of racism.
Yes.
That's what we'll be covering on the 20th. Can you give us a little?
Well, we'll be covering racism in the context of the legacy of Dr. Welsing, but also in the context of our daily realities. Dr. Welsing, when she used the word racism, she always said racism, the system and white supremacy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Looking at it as a continuum, not as two separate issues. Because she was looking at a system, a designed way by which one could manifest dominance over another group. And she knows, as well as, a lot of people have heard me say, I very rarely use the word white supremacy, which is different than the system that she was talking about. She was talking about an overall system. But as an entity into itself, there's a play on the psychology with words. Mm-hmm. And when you say something is superior, that means there has to be something that is inferior. Absolutely. And so I would never ascribe to calling the Euro system a superior system, with the full understanding that I'm not in disagreement with Dr. Welsing as it relates to the system of white supremacy. So I think that needs to be clarified, because some people have tried to create confusion. Some people, that's their role on that kind of dynamic. And so what we're going to be looking at is how, in fact, that system manifests itself. Dr. Welsing used to say that there were 4 elements that were required for this system to exist. First, it had to be established. Then it had to be maintained. Then it had to be expanded. And then it had to be refined. And what we're living in today is the refined movement of racism, where everything else is put there but the word racism, but the concept racism. And many people, especially Europeans, feel that we've beaten this to a dead horse. Now, nobody complains when Jewish people talk about the Holocaust, but they do complain when we talk about our Holocaust that we had to endure for a longer period of time than most other groups in the world. And what's really sad about the whole concept of racism is that there in the human population, there is only one race. There's only one race, and everything else is a variation on that thing.
Right, right.
Because all Homo sapien sapien derived, from the Afroid that migrated across, into other parts of the world. And there were, at any point in time, several different species of what became humans or humanoids. There were several different species occurring sometimes at the same time, including Neanderthal and other groups. And so these species interbred,
Right.
whether we want to accept it or not.
Right.
That did happen.
Right.
And the gene pool is still amongst us in today, carrying itself out into various and sundry ways. And so part of the reason that nobody wants to address the concept of racism is because, first of all, it's a false concept that was created to keep a people under the foot of another people,
right,
kith and kin, as a matter of fact,
right.
To create systems of disproportionate wealth
right,
and domination in the context of making people feel and ensuring by behavior that they were subhumans. And so it became palatable to create and continue to treat other variations of the family species, of the human species, in a very negative and traumatic way in order to justify greed, lust, and domination.
Wow.
No, fine.
Okay. So while we talking about racism, back to the Super Bowl. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did not.
But I know you hear all the talk about Beyonce and the halftime show.
How you gonna put on blast?
No, I just wanted to,
Beyonce and what was the other group?
Coldplay. But what she specifically did, this was what's all over the internet, was she did the thing and she did the Black Panther thing and had the women dressed in the Black Panther gear. And so a lot of people, taking to social media, some people say they think that it's fixed. People put it up to it. Then some people, she is under heavy assault from white people saying she owes police apology, she owes military people apology, and white folks are really going after her. So, I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Beyonce is an entertainer.
Right.
Let's say that.
Right.
Do we hold other entertainers accountable for the poo-pas and the things that they do? I mean, she's an entertainer.
Right.
So if you want to complain about entertainment, which a lot of people enjoyed, and I can't think that many folk were looking at their costumes as much as they were looking at the booties. Let me just call it the way it is. And I saw all the people yelling. I did see the clip.
Right.
I saw people yelling and screaming in appreciation. I didn't see them yelling and screaming that it was a racially, motivated thing. Entertainers have always made statements one way or the other.
Right.
Whether they were conscious or unconscious,
right?
And we can accept those with a grain of salt and move on. But they were there for entertainment, and the fact that she made a statement about the nature of what our current reality is just that, a statement about the nature from an entertainer, And I think we're putting too much weight on something that is not that relevant. Let me just say it that way, because her entertainment is not going to change the lives of anybody appreciably.
Right.
It was entertainment. People can take it however they want to take it.
Right.
I thought they looked pretty good myself, but but I'm just saying all that to say that why are we putting a political statement on this? Because I was always told as a child that a hit dog hollers. And the people that are complaining the most, maybe it's affecting them in a visceral way where they just wanted somebody to shake their booty without a message.
Right. Wow. Okay. Other thing,
that's all I can say on that.
I gotta.
Can I
I'm sorry.
stop you a question? So, so do you believe that entertainment can affect change?
Yes, I do believe it can affect change. I do believe that it's probably the least threatening way to affect change, because people don't perceive that in a way as they would somebody coming right in your face and calling you out for what you are. I think that what entertainment can do, and movies do it all the time, is bring to viewers a level of reality that may not be conscious in their mind. And it also permits, hopefully, a discussion to ensue where people can dialogue and come to some kind of congruency. The problem in America is that we are very sensitive about race. And we don't want to discuss it. At least Europeans who are in control don't want to discuss it. Because anything that shakes our comfort zone, we want to push down. Because it's safer and easier to push it down and not discuss it. And because everybody says, "Oh, black people get so emotional about it, and they always looking for a handout and this and that." I think those are very simplistic analogies and do not get at the core of the reality of what is really going on. White privilege is what I call it, rather than rather than white supremacy. And my friend Hunter Adam calls it white pathological privilege. And so the reality is, who expects somebody to give up their power without a fight?
Right.
You know, are you serious?
Absolutely.
And that's something that's what Dr. Welsing was talking about in the system. She really wasn't talking to Europeans.
Right.
We need to understand she was talking to us
Right.
about us thinking all the time that all we have to do is be kinder, gentler, and pray our way out of a difficult situation. That some people are vested in maintaining the status quo because it's advantageous to them, period. And so if you think for 1 minute that you're not going to get a peep out of anything that an entertainer does, like Beyonce, as subtle and low level on the totem pole of changing things that is, then you're just stupid, because the reality of it is nobody is going to give up privilege.
Right.
And Dr. Clark used to say it better than anybody. You cannot expect powerful people to teach powerless people how to gain power.
Woo. Yeah.
Speaking of, I guess sometimes when it's necessary to switch the language, Snoop Dogg actually.
In his response to Jada.
To Jada with the
goodness.
Oscar.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Well, it's raw and real.
Right.
It's just raw and real.
Right.
You know, Snoop said, "I can't say it as nice as you."
Right.
You know,
Baby girl.
baby girl.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, first of all, the point is well taken, but it's very late in coming.
Oh, wow. Absolutely.
Let me just
Very
say
late.
that.
Very, very late.
It's very late in coming. And it's the same thing as, people wanted to say, "Oh, well, Jada was upset," because, she's a Baltimore girl.
Right.
Jada was upset because Will didn't win an Oscar. Well, Will should have been nominated. I agree. But I don't think that was just because he didn't.
Right.
I think it was because at some point people come to a level of consciousness where they get fed up. And it takes sometimes a triggering moment to do that. And my position is, I don't care when you get there, just get there. And Snoop, of course, is, like I say, raw and real.
It's the Conscious Black Business Network, the radio show brought to you by a radio flow. Call, chat, listen, and learn. Today you will know. Today we resume to stay tuned to CBBN at 9 p.m. Minister Asar with Brother Sankofa, giving what you demand most of. Propaganda that's proper. Network, then let's work together to live free and prosper. Life, the business of love, the business of health, the business of wealth. It's the business of principle, the business of media, the business of conscious black business, the business of life, the business of love, the business of health, the business of wealth. It's the business of principle, the business of media, the business of conscious black business network.